Hi there. My name is Juji. Welcome to my channel. This is a space for anyone and everyone who's interested in exploring personal development and relationships through the human design system. This is going to be part 2 of a 2-part series that I wanted to do on the love triangle between Prince Charles, Princess Diana, and Camilla Parker Bowles. The last video was all about why Charles and Diana just didn't seem to work out. And this video is all about Charles and Camilla and why they were basically inseparable. Even with all of the hurdles that they had to overcome, they seem to persevere and are now married and have been since 2005, even though there was so much disapproval about their relationship from the very beginning. So before we get started, I wanted to share their charts with you. We'll do a refresher on Charles, and then we'll take a look at Camilla and see what was going on there. So as a review, this is Prince Charles. He's a generator. He's a 4-6 profile, sacral authority. He's a triple split, which is unusual, and he is on the right angle cross of explanation. The thing I pointed out in the first video is that he has a lot of individual chemistry, most specifically the channel 360 from the sacral to the root. We're going to talk a lot about that today. And this is Camilla. She is a manifesting generator. So right off the bat, you can see that they're better matched in terms of type for type. Manifesting generators are generators first. She is also a 4-6 profile. And in fact, they are about the same age. So they were at the same cycles of their lives throughout their relationship. She is an emotional authority, single definition, and she's on the right angle cross of Maya. And actually, what I want to point out is that she also is very individual in terms of her chart. So right there, you can see that 2 individuals, 2 4-6s, 2 generator types, very well matched indeed. And then when you look at their charts together, it's just couldn't be more perfect. They have 7 electromagnetic connections, which is more than most married couples I know, including myself. My husband and I have 4, and I thought that was pretty spicy. And they are a single definition together, which means that Camilla bridges all of Charles's splits. They also have all 9 centers defined together. So they have everything they need in this relationship together. And there's no compromises in their relationship either. There's no places in the chart where one of them compromises to the other. So you can see the helplessness in all of that in terms of what Charles was supposed to do and who he was supposed to love and who he ended up loving in the end. I mean, they're still together and it's been decades, right? So the proof is in the pudding here. I want to dig into Camilla's chart a little bit more. So one of the things that stood out to me again is that she is very much an individual. She does have emotional definition, unlike Charles, but wherein that might have been a sticking point with him and Diana as her emotionality was focused on him. Instead, he is able to take in Camilla's emotionality maybe in a less destabilizing way. And in fact, when somebody is open emotionality can be very attractive to them. It can be warm and fuzzy and sexy and attractive, but when it all goes wrong, the emotions are usually what gets blamed. So it seems that this is a good match in terms of the way that they are able to work through that. Now, Charles has a defined ego and a defined G center, and Camilla has these places open, which are her primary dilemmas. And of course, we all want what we can't have. And so the fact that she was taking in this chemistry from Charles was probably very comforting for her. She had consistent willpower when he was around. She felt like she had an identity when he was around. And the fact that she could keep up with his energy in terms of the fact that they're both sacral beings and there's no compromising with their energy there must have been a really refreshing change of pace from Diana, who is not an energy type and was probably struggling to keep up with the demands of what the royal, I don't like, being a royal really means. It's very grueling. It's very tiring. I talked about that in my video about the Queen, how she's a projector and how it must have been very difficult for her throughout those years to meet the demands that were being put upon her. But of course, Camilla doesn't have that problem. So Charles doesn't have to, like, you know, hear her complaining like, oh, I'm tired, I don't want to go do that. She has 3 motors. She can hang. So and that's really Camilla in a nutshell. I mean, she is an individual in the sense that she has channel 2034, the channel of charisma, twice. So she's really about being busy for herself. And, you know, it didn't seem throughout the years that like she was necessarily pushing for the relationship. It seemed like Charles was the one who was really going for it, and she was going along with it, because how can you deny 7 electromagnetic connections? That is cuckoo bananas. I have very rarely seen that. So let's talk about these connections. Like I said, the 2 of them together form a single definition, which means that Charles didn't need to look outside of the relationship to get all of the connections he needs to be a single definition as a triple split, which is a big part of what made him want to be out and about and social. Triple split definitions need a lot of connections through their chart. So the fact that he got that at home with Camilla, he didn't have to go outside of the relationship to get that, must have been huge for him. Absolutely huge. I also just want to point out that when you have chemistry in the integration channels, meaning the 20, the 10, the 34, and the 57, both of them have individual chemistry there. And so these connections are all interconnected in this very individual way. So I would say that probably the thing that is most refreshing for Charles about Camilla is that she is herself and she lets him be himself. That is a huge, huge thing, especially for somebody who has been under a magnifying glass their whole life. You know, it is very attractive that somebody who is close to them is not putting anything on them in terms of who they want you to be. Because like I said in the first video, individuals can only be themselves. They can only go their own way. And that doesn't really line up with carrying out the traditions of the monarchy. But Charles was pretty helpless in that. So they have a lot of connections in this individual circuit group together. And then they have the channel of the wavelength, the 48 and the 16 together. Man, were they on the same wavelength, right? Like this connection through the spleen, because they're both open spleen, is probably really comforting for them. You know, anyone with an open spleen is always looking for that level of security. And although the connection with Princess Diana was also splenic, it was the channel of struggle that they had together. So, you know, Charles and Diana did nothing but struggle in their relationship. But this channel of the wavelength has this beautiful opportunity to create all sorts of like creative endeavors between the two of them. And it creates this connection through their spleen that probably makes them feel really warm and fuzzy and cozy together. Then they have the channel of the alpha together, the 31-7, and this is all about leadership. So in a way, this helps Charles with his leadership. You know, he's expected now to step up and be the king and be out being a leader, just like his mother before him, but she had this channel by herself. So she had this channel of leadership built into her, while Charles is kind of depending on Camilla to bring that to him in his chart. And this is really quite something. Now they have the channel of awareness as well, 61-24. So they also have an intellectual connection. They have this intellectual way of exploring the truth, the inner truth. This is all about like what is true for them as individuals. And they probably are, you know, rarely at a loss for what to talk about. You know, even after 40 years, they probably are pretty chatty together because, you know, these kinds of connections often yield this very intellectual bond. And I can see why that would be really attractive for Charles, especially since he has to make so much small talk in his everyday life. That must be so boring for him. So to be able to have this banter with someone is probably very, very comforting as well. The last thing I really want to say about this whole situation as a whole, as we know, Charles was forced to marry Diana when Diana was only 19 years old. So there was this huge age gap between the two of them. They tried to make it work for many years, even had 2 children together, which is really what, you know, their bond was supposed to be about anyway. And they tried and tried and tried to make it work, just couldn't do it. And this is completely correct, even though in the eyes of the world, it may not have looked pretty in a lot of ways. Charles has this channel 360, which is the channel of mutation. And so many unprecedented things happened with him in this situation. Not only did he get a divorce, which was unheard of, not only did he publicly admit that he had an affair while he was married, unprecedented stuff, then he ended up marrying his divorced mistress, which is, again, what his grandfather's brother was dethroned for, and now he is going to be king. So he has mutated single-handedly the way that we see the royal family. We see them as much more human now, because what could be more human than getting a divorce and like, you know, the affair and all of that stuff. I mean, it's the oldest story in the book, but the fact that they were publicly admitting it and then actually divorcing, and then him admitting that he was still in love with this woman and marrying her was just, who could have ever imagined that this would be the case? Not the queen, I'll tell you that much. The queen was not into this at all and had to bend to him, because the future is about the individual. The future is about, you know, traditions kind of falling by the wayside. And if you're not happy within yourself, you can't make anyone else happy. You can't take care of your country as a king if you yourself are miserable. And, you know, as ugly as it looked, he stood his ground. As uncomfortable as it was to watch a lot of the times, this was exactly what was supposed to happen. So Kudos to him for mutating the way that we see the situation. Again, mutation is something that we can't predict. We couldn't have predicted that this is how things were going to be. But between Charles and Camilla having all of this individual chemistry and then getting together all of this individual chemistry together really shows us that the future is all about the individual. And I love to see it, honestly. All right, guys, hopefully you got some insight about what happened between Charles, Diana, and Camilla, why Charles just couldn't make it work with one of the most beautiful women in the world and instead chose his married ex-girlfriend, and why this was so important in terms of moving the needle for the royal family and how we see the monarchy. If you enjoyed this, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Instagram at HDbyZ and find me on my website. The link will be in the show notes below. There you can see I offer individual human design readings, a relationship mentorship program, and a community for conscious women who are practicing strategy and authority through the human design system. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please put them below. See you next time, and ciao for now.